Chicago Police Commander Eric Winstrom has been named Grand Rapids ex-police chief and is scheduled to take the oath of office on March 7th. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm News 8 digital anchor Luke Laster here from the Wood TV live desk. Joining me is the man who made the decision to select Mr. Winstrom as our new chief, Grand Rapids City Manager Mark Washington. Mr. Washington, how are you today? Thanks for taking some time.
I'm doing fine, Luke. Thanks for having me on.
You bet, you bet. So, Mr. Winstrom, what set him apart from these other candidates? We had Utiki Jackson and Jim Blocker. What really stood out and made you say this is the new chief of the Grand Rapids Police Department?
Well, we had a lot of good candidates in the process. We were very fortunate to have good results from our national recruitment. All three candidates had proven leadership abilities in their respective communities and, had different strengths among the three candidates. But when we evaluated all the feedback that we received from community members, from law enforcement professionals, from staff internal to the police department, as well as other city departments, Commander Winstrom really stood out. Not that the others were not good candidates, but he really stood out. And part of what made him stand out is not only had a distinguished career in law enforcement, but he also had the legal background of being a prosecutor in the Chicago Police Department, a Fourth Amendment expert, expert on use of force, as well as a reputation for really engaging with the community and leading Chicago in a lot of good ways. His area that he oversaw in Chicago was as I checked with officers in the department, as we checked with some of the elected officials as well as community members, was one of the more progressive areas that was commanded in the police department. So he had a lot of good feedback, a lot of good things that we heard about him, and as well as we saw when he was here. And so we're really excited to have him come on board.
What are some of the concerns with GRPD that you have that Winstrom can fix or improve upon?
Well, I think as I look at our department, there's lots of opportunities for us to improve as a city, as well as the police department police department specifically. But I think that there are several challenges that the department has. Well, first of all, there's a sentiment around law enforcement nationally, as well as across the state and locally, that has caused a lot of negative perceptions and lack of trust with community members. And some of these issues originate from some of the national conversations that have been occurring since the murders of both George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And so you have that public image of policing that's going to require a lot of goodwill and trust. And I think Chief Winstrom is the type of leader that will help us to improve our relationship and have people begin to identify Grand Rapids Police Department perhaps as being part of policing and law enforcement, but knowing that we do things just a little bit different from other communities. And I believe that we do things better in terms of the way that we police when compared to other mid-sized and large urban communities. And so part of that challenge has resulted in a lack of interest in law enforcement. And I know one of the things that he's going to try to do is diversify the ranks, but we got to make sure that people are still interested in applying. And I heard reports over the past week how our applicant pool has significantly decreased because of some of the national sentiments towards the profession at this time. And so making sure that he can both generate trust in the community, inspire people to want to become law enforcement officers, but also build good relationships within the department. And I think the morale of the department has been bruised quite a bit over the past couple of years. And so we have to make sure that both officers as well as community members are fully engaged and are behind our new chief as he begins to lead the department.
You just mentioned there the morale of the department being bruised over recent years. What can Winstrom bring immediately to the table to help heal that wound?
Well, it's gonna take a lot of bridge building and restorative relationships, as well as results to show that he wants the department to be transparent, accountable to community, but also to be effective in reducing and solving crimes, particularly violent crimes. And as you know, that 2020, the year in which there was so much concern about the way law enforcement was being led across the country. That year was the most violent year in crime in a lot of cities, in particular Grand Rapids, where we had 38 homicides. And so I think there's a balance. How do you keep the community safe and make sure that truly violent offenders that want to cause harm are held accountable for their actions, but also how do we prevent violent crime and crime in general from happening, and knowing that law enforcement can't do it by themselves. So I'm looking forward to his plans to partner with the community, to look at other supportive services around mental health, behavioral health, to continue our efforts in co-responding or having referral responses to some of the other calls that officers typically respond to. So I think doing that will help both the morale of the department as well as the trust of the community, and hopefully we will have better outcomes.
Chief Payne, on his way out, I do have one question for you about him. If you could, share something nice about Chief Payne here while he was at GRPD.
Well, that's not a hard thing to do, because I have a tremendous amount of respect and appreciation for Chief Payne, as he has served this community for over 30 years. And unfortunately, the baton was passed to him during one of the most challenging times in recent times in the history of law enforcement, with a global pandemic, with economic downturn, with a social pandemic, if you will, around the civil unrest. And Chief Payne, there were many, many, many nights that I'm sure that he questioned, his taking the assignment or accepting the assignment of being police chief. But there was a tremendous amount of resiliency that he showed to continue to get us through this difficult time. He helped us adopt the department's strategic plan. We hadn't had a strategic plan in a while. He helped implement some pretty progressive things like the neighborhood policing model. He helped us in building or collaborating and building the first oversight office. He helped and was supportive of the first initiative of Cure Violence, our piloting of Cure Violence, where that is a neighborhood, community-oriented program that helps in violence interruption and prevention, but doing it from the grassroots level. And Chief Payne was very supportive of all of that. So I have nothing but admiration and appreciation and respect for the work that he's done, and he's done it while being the first chief of color, first African American chief, which that is a double honor, both to be chief but also to be the first African American chief of color, and he's done it with distinction, and I really, really appreciate his service.
Ceremony saying goodbye to Chief Payne and then swearing in Mr. Winstrom there. Tell me a little bit about those coming up.
Yeah, so Chief Payne, we will have a reception at the Grand Rapids Police Department on Friday, March 4th in the afternoon for the community as well as the department to show our appreciation and honor Chief Payne for his many, many years of service. And that will be on Friday. And then on Monday, we will have the official swearing in for Chief Winstrom that will be at City Hall. So the Friday ceremony will be at the Grand Rapids Police Department, and the Monday swearing in ceremony will be at City Hall, City Commission Chambers at 5:30.
One last thing here as we wrap up. What's one specific initiative that you can speak about that you would like to see Chief Winstrom pursue within his first 6 months with GRPD?
Well, Chief Winstrom, even though he starts on March 7th, he's been really starting before then. He's been really doing two jobs, wrapping up in Chicago, and he and I have had the chance to touch base every week, and we've already talked about some of the things that I think is on the top of his list, and recruitment, diversity of recruitment in the department is important. And he's talked about making sure that we continue to make the opportunity known, but specifically doubling down on our efforts to collaborate with historically Black colleges and universities to diversify the ranks. We'll continue to partner with Grand Valley State and GRCC and the local high schools and universities, but also to make a deliberate effort to reach out to some of the HBCUs and the predominantly Black colleges and universities in the Midwest. And there's some in Ohio, Wilberforce, and there's one right in his own backyard at Cleveland State University. And so, Chicago State University. And so hopefully those relationships will bear fruitful here in Grand Rapids, and we can see some results in that. But I think immediately coming in, he's going to have to do a lot of listening and meeting people and getting to know people and building trust and making sure that his priorities are in line with not only my priorities, but community priorities, and making sure that this is a safe community for everyone. And so, in addition to the basic blocking and tackling, if you will, the budget will be a conversation that we'll have to adopt in May. And he's going to come in right at the mid-flight of the budget discussions, and those conversations have been very difficult conversations over the past couple of years over the right level of funding for law enforcement and the right level of funding for other programs that keep our community safe. He's also going to come in the midst of labor negotiations where our contracts are due expire at the end of June, and there's a lot of discussions, a lot of things that the community wants to see change in how we police, but some of those elements are governed by areas of the contract, and we have to have collective bargaining and meet with our unions on that. And so he's going to have a lot of things to address in the first 6 months, both internal and external, but particularly with the community members, just getting to know this community and understand the ways in which it prefers to be policed.
Grand Rapids City Manager Mark Washington. Sir, anything else that you'd like to add here as we wrap up?
Well, Luke, I want to thank you for your partnership in Wood TV and helping us get the word out from the inception as we announced to the community Chief Payne's departure, to the point in which we were asking for community input on developing the profile of the position, to the point where we came back and had conversations about we wanted community input when the finalists were in town, and to now even letting our community know about how to officially welcome and meet the chief and then begin to engage with him. And so I really appreciate your help in helping us make this transition.
Appreciate you too as well. Thanks for taking the time. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a link attached to the stream. It takes you over to woodtv.com. If you've missed our conversation here, you'll be able to watch it back there. That lives over online again at woodtv.com. This has been a look at the Wood TV Live Desk. Grand Rapids City Manager Mark Washington. Thanks again, folks. I'm News 8 Digital anchor Luke Glasser. Have a great afternoon, folks. We'll see you around.